Hey, comic book geeks and your sci-fi freaks, comic book Casey coming at you from Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi. I am here at the Motor City Comic Con 2023, y'all, and look at who I'm with. I'm with the rap legend himself. It's McDaniels, not McDonald's. The burgers are Ronald's. There you go. I'm old, man. I was there at the concert, but I was a little drunk while I was there, so too much beer, man. All right, so why don't you tell us, how did you get into the comic book business? What was your inspiration for comic books?
Before hip-hop came over from the Bronx into Queens 50 years ago, excuse me, before 60s and 70s rock radio, all I did as a kid was read, collect, and draw comic books. Comic books was the only place I saw geeky, nerdy, awkward, clumsy, confused individuals trying to figure out their place in this world who was super badass, was in the comic books. I could relate to Bruce Wayne. I could relate to Peter Parker. I could relate to Steve Rogers. I could relate to Tony Starks. So from kindergarten, when I first saw my first comic book, I didn't even know how to read. It's just something that said, that's who I am. And then by second grade, because I wanted to know what was in these books, I was a straight A student. So it was in second grade when I would read, collect, and draw, read, collect, and draw, read, collect, and draw, read, collect, and draw, until in 8th grade when I heard hip-hop. And it wasn't about making music or being in I never wanted to be in the entertainment business. But when I first heard hip-hop, it was like, oh, shoot. You could tell stories about who you are over music, just like the people that write the comic books do. And about 9 years ago, I went to a music meeting, and I met with this individual named Riggs Morales, who was Eminem's, big shout out to Eminem, one of Detroit's finest. He was Eminem's A&R over at Shady Records, so he's now up in Warner Atlantic in New York, and I had some music stuff I was helping with a friend, and when I went to sit down with him, we didn't even talk about music. He just asked me, D, what was it like when you was a kid? And I was like, well, I used to read, collect, and draw comic books. He was like, me too. And we sat there for 3 hours. We talked about comic books, and he said, you should do a comic book. And then I said, no, don't put me in trouble with my fellow geeks and nerds, because I didn't want nobody to think, oh, just because he had a couple of hit records, he could do a comic book now and commercialize our culture, because this is sacred and holy. But he said, no, D, it'll be all right with you, because first of all, your first love is comic books, and all of that you told me, that was your first passion. Then the music came along. But the real thing that made me do the book was, he said, D, and besides, you could do the very same thing you've been doing with your music for the last 30 years. And I was like, what's that? Inspire, motivate, educate while you entertain people. He said, D, it's going to be the same thing you was doing with your records, except the music's going to be off. I was like, oh, wow, I never thought about so 9 years ago, DMC Comics, Darryl Makes Comics was born because he said, if you're going to name your company, you can't use Marvel, you can't use DC, you can't use Milestone, you can't use Valiant. No, you can't use anything that's out there now. And I sat there for a minute.
So no more devastating mic control, but
no,
Darryl
that's
makes
still
comics.
Part of it. It's devastating mic control, and now Darryl Makes Comics. And in about a couple of months, I'm starting a cookie company called Darryl Makes Cookies.
I'm a cookie fanatic.
Yes, everybody loves cookies.
Hopefully soft batch chocolate chip, man.
Yes, for sure. And sugar and oatmeal raisin and a protein cookie for people in the gyms. But
there you go.
Comic books is my first love. The Easter eggs has always been there, Casey. Crash through walls, come through floors, bust through ceilings, and knock down doors. I'm DJ Run, I could scratch. I didn't say I'm DMC could rap. I said I'm DMC, I could draw.
There you go.
So my comic book heads was like, D, we know. Yeah, when you were saying that, but we wasn't sure. So now it's just the other thing that I am is now being shared with the world.
Man, we appreciate that, because now just hearing you tell the story, you have definitely shown that you have the ultimate respect for the comic book culture.
Yep.
And it's sacred to you. Just
for sure, it's sacred.
Because we're a tribe. We are a tribe of comic book geeks,
For
and
sure.
we were the kids that were drawing instead of playing sports. Some
Yep.
of us.
Yeah, I hate it. I didn't care nothing about basketball.
Right, but you know what?
Comic book and a pen and a pad.
There you go. That's how it was, man.
For
I
sure.
feel you
And there
for
were
sure.
so many of us too. That's the other thing. Riggs was like, D, you can represent us in a powerful way.
And we are thankful that you are.
So yes.
No, this is good, man. I love the motivation, the inspiration that you're providing, because I think this is going to give those kids that had the whole dream of becoming rappers or professional athletes. This interview alone could help make them rethink their position.
Hip hop didn't just create rappers. You don't have to be an athlete to be hip hop and gangster and bout it. You could be creative and you could be educated. And you can have fun and you can find yourself a career.
And you just heard that from the greatest of all time. One of the greatest, Hall of Famer. Come on.
DMC in a place to be. Darryl makes comics just like Stan Lee. Like Peter Parker, I come from Queens, and like T'Challa, I am a king. The king of rock, that is.
DMC forever. There you go.
Thank you. Motor City Comic Con, one of the greatest places to be. Also right here with my man KC and DMC. Where we at? In the 313.
You have it. Boom. That's what we talking about, y'all. DMC. Darryl makes comics, devastating mind control himself, rock and roll Hall of Famer. He just laid it all out for y'all. I have nothing else to say. Comic Book Casey signing out, y'all.